we are now going to discuss the subject, which is positions.
And we had a lot of positions while we're dancing.
As, of course, you learn very early that we're not only in closed position, it's changing all the time. And would like to go through some of them that we feel are very, very important. We will commence with a promenade position. Very oftenly used promenade position. So many figures end in promenade position or start in promenade position or have promenade position in them. And that is position which of course requires a lot of discipline in order to make it look good. Now, just go through the promenade. So what happens in promenade, we both step through forward and in promenade position. Now, what is important here to note that in the base, in the hip area, we have so-called V shape. So the hips are at about 90-degree angle to each other.
So if we close our feet here, right there, you can definitely see the V shape.
Now, but we shouldn't do the same in the upper body, in the shoulders, because that would affect the frame, the line, and it wouldn't look as good. So what we feel through the upper body, going rib cage and towards the shoulders, we are support our body so that we actually maintain shoulder lines almost parallel to each other. So they're not following the hips. So in normal closed position, hips are more or less over the shoulders all the time, they are aligned. In promenade, they are not. So we have different angles in the base and in the top.
The reason we need the V position, so we will feel comfortable stepping through the promenade. So from here to here. So we have enough space to step through.
So I feel that within the body we create torsion, because in the base it's open and in the top it's rotated strongly towards each other. So open like this in the hips and then support rib cages and the shoulders as parallel to each other as possible. Now head of course will change, and important that still in the same poised curve and my head still correctly balancing over the base, if I take the hips as a base. If we look, this is closed position, and now regrouping ourselves to promenade, so that obviously greater change for the lady, which turned from left to right. Now, in my case, it was from here to here. I feel that in promenade, it feels the best and looks the best when I'm looking through the connection of our hands together. So my line of vision goes through here, slightly over here. So I think I'm having line of vision over the connected hands.
For the girl, my head will be turned slightly more. So let's say my line of vision goes about right here, passing it. But what's important that the head weight is still staying within the frame. So I'm not going to be pulling my head all the way there. It stays within the frame.
And we feel we set that position for promenade before we step into this step, which is described as a step side into promenade. Now, there are two ways of getting into promenade: through the turning actions to the right or turning to the left. If we take as an example impetus,
which would be turning to the right.
Yes, turning to the right. Now I'm going to be over-rotating the rib cage to achieve the promenade. So let's just see the pattern that we're going to do. And 1 and 2 and 3. So on and 30, I got into the promenade position so that the hips are in V shape, rib cage more parallel, and shoulders more parallel to each other.
As they go, what happens, so I start my step with the right foot forward, 1. Then I get myself onto the middle balance. And now from here, I need to make sure that I actually overturn my hips relatively to the shoulders to get in the V shape.
So in my case, I'm over-rotating the rib cage and the shoulders. In Katyusha's case, she's over-rotating the hips to achieve correct promenade when we're doing the impetus here. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 1. We move through on 1 in promenade position and maintaining that position. Now, we can have slightly more shape or less shape through the impetus, commencing with a sway to the right, or could be straighter, increasing sway to the right, and then straightening into promenade. Sometimes it's possible to sway into promenade too. That's got to do a lot with the preferences that we have. Generally, Katyusha and I prefer promenade to be more or less straight in terms of sway. So as we go 3 and 1, we're actually going through that moment of neutral rather than putting the sway. The sway will come out in the next step out of the promenade. So watch the way we're shaping how we're using rotation and swaying actions through the impetus and the way we step into the promenade. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 1.
Very good. And now we will show you how to get to promenade in a different way.
Let's take outside change, for instance. Now this figure is going to turn to the left. And here I'm actually going to do it differently. In this case, my base is going to turn more left as the rib cage and the shoulders going to be staying underturned relatively to the base.
And my action is going to be different now because I will actually stop the base and upper body will continue to turn to get myself into a promenade position.
Three and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. And relatively to the swaying actions, outside change also could be danced without the sway, or some sways could be added right and then left. Our preference, again, it would be that at the end of 3 and 1, we would go through that neutral position. So the activity in the body is there. Visually, the effect is that we're going through neutral in promenade, and then the shape would be coming visually noticeable on 2, the step after we did the promenade. Now, let's do it with the shaping. 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Good. Let's take another position, not as often used maybe as the promenade, a wing position. That's when we're changing from the area of touch, normal right to right, when it slips into the left to left. So quite a big change from here to here. Now what's interesting, that as we do that, as we get into that position where the areas of change, we shouldn't get crossed over in the top. So the change is going to happen in the hip area and the rib cages, the area of touch. But if we take the top where the head weights are, we shouldn't be overcrossing. We still have to maintain the relationship where our heads are on the right side of each other. In spite of the sway, it could be a right, straight, or left, but you see that kind of relationship rather than this. We're now going to dance the wing from promenade position. Into promenade, and 1 and 2 and 3, and 1 and 2 and 3.
Now, it's important to notice that the position of our hands is going to be depending on the amount of sway Arūnas will be doing. Right now, my hand is turned to the left. If Arūnas would have kept this sway straighter, I would have the choice of keeping my head to the right. My personal preference is to the left no matter what. And if we do more sway, then if you can see, Arūnas changed his head and turned it slightly more to the right.
Notice how the head is reacting to the changes of sway. And in the wing, of course, the area of touch has changed. We're actually now touching on the left side of each other. So when we get those changes, so we should feel like the bodies are sliding across each other lightly.
And it's very gradual.
And gradually. If we get too much pressure on each other, it can be difficult. So then we need to detach and then attach. If we have light touch, then we can actually change the position smoothly without losing the togetherness.
I almost feel when I'm changing the positions from one to another, in the case of the wing, I'm almost trying to hide the change. So unless you know that we have to change, that the people don't see it. So you disguise it.
One more time. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. Very good. Let's take another position, danced quite often, and that is outside partner position. And outside partner can be from two sides. Outside partner step on the right side of the lady, or as it happened to be after the wing that we just did, outside partner on the left side of the lady. And I would say outside partner on the right side is more common, outside partner on the left side less common. Principles are the same. We actually have to get strong side lead as we preparing to step outside partner, and use the contra body movement position correctly as we make the step outside partner.
And it goes for both of us. So if you're coming forward, I'm going back. Same thing, I'll have the side lead going back. In this case, it's my right side. And then we will be stepping in CBMP next.
CBMP, contra body movement position, is the position when we step on or across the line of the standing foot. So imagine if I'm stepping this direction, this is the line of the standing foot. So normal closed position, we would have wider tracking and not crossing that track. Now in CBMP, I'm crossing the track. And very important note that the bodies should be supported to each other. So Katyusha and I, we will support bodies to each other. Let's just take it that direction. And 1.
Now
Stepping outside partner.
If we take the hold down, you can see that how our rib cages is to each other supporting it.
What we feel like that we have two directions as we take outside partner step. One, where the weight is moving, and another where the body is aligned through the shape in the rib cage. So if I have step outside partner and moving direction down the line of dance, my body actually would be aligned so that we stay together diagonally to the center or to the wall, depending which way I'm going. So we feel it's like 1/8 of the difference. Upper body rotated to the right more, about 1/8 relatively to the direction of the movement. And that enables us to keep our bodies together as we step outside partner. If we get square with the bodies as we take outside partner step, then you will get a situation where the thighs are going to push the bodies away from each other. So if you rotate bodies to each other like this, then you support the togetherness of the couple. Outside partner step on the left side, same principle, so we get side lead, and then we step in CBMP. So across the line of the standing foot here. And again, bodies are supported to each other. In this case, because it's on the left side, so the rib cage supported to the left to each other. So also the difference in the direction of the weight travel and the way we're aligning the bodies. And in this case, it is over-rotated to the left.
And this is exactly what we do when we're coming out of the wing.
Let's see how we can connect, for instance, wing into the telemark. And the telemark would be commencing in this case with the outside partner step on the left side, out of the wing position. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. And for instance, closed telemark can be finishing with the outside partner on the right side. Let's take it from this angle. And if we roll the bodies across each other correctly, have correct angles, we shouldn't be losing togetherness. We should change the position smoothly, and we should maintain correct style in the top. So what we don't want to get is when the heads are crossing over and the shoulders lose that correct position where they more or less parallel to each other.
And also the heads are not crossing.
Not crossing over.
Oh, you said that.
And 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2
Wing,
and 3 and
outside
1,
partner,
2 and 3 and
outside
1.
partner.
And stop. Very good. So hopefully that will help you to feel the togetherness and the smoothness, how the position's changing.
This is a very good exercise for practicing changing of the positions because it's a lot of them in a few steps. Normally when we dance a choreography, we wouldn't necessarily have so many packed up
In one spot.
Yes.
Let's have a look at another commonly used position. It's a same foot lunge or telespin position. They are similar, leg lines would be different. Let's take same foot lunge. Now in same foot lunge what we get, the lady's hips are slipping at this angle. We create so-called T angle. So ladies' hips almost 90 degrees.
Almost 90 degrees.
Almost, not exactly almost 90 degree to the man's hips. But unlike the promenade, we are not like this where it's almost 90 degree this way. The lady's hips slip inside of the man's hip. So what I feel, the area of touch in the hip area shifts here. From here to inside of my hip. That's how I feel. So that would be the hip line in the same foot lunge. Let's just turn here. My hips that plane, Katyusha's hips this plane. Now, again, same thing, the same values apply that we shouldn't lose correct top line. So notice, although Katyusha's hips are at this angle, rib cage and shoulders are supported towards me in a way that we maintain the top line more parallel to each other. And same with me, I feel that my rib cage is supported towards Katyusha and the shoulder line is being parallel to each other. And then we can then same foot lunge in this position. Changes of sway can happen, but you see the position in the base maintains the same, remains the same.
Let's do it from a different angle.
Okay, let's do it this angle.
So normally if you look at it right now we're in a closed position. So to set up the same foot lunge, I will turn my hips in the T-line.
I feel like if I want to lead that, so I'm flexing and initiating the rotation through the body, and in the hip area I feel that initiation goes to the change. Changing the sways, and then we can actually exit with a pivoting action where we slip back into the closed position. So rotating like this in the hips and then rotating back into the closed position. As an exercise, let's add it after this wing when we were and did telemark, when we were outside partner this way, we can do natural telemark into the same foot lunge. Same foot lunge with a sway right and left, and then exit with a reverse pivot to get back into the closed position. Let's just do that combination. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and.
Very good. I think what we should do, we should put together all the steps we went through. So now we know how to do impetus, promenade position, wing, into a telemark, into a natural telemark, into a same foot lunge, into the pivot, which will actually bring us back to a normal closed position. And of course, not forget to mention an outside partner positions in between the steps. That's a lot to do.
And 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3.
Very good. We'll do it one more time from a different angle.
Ready? And 1 and 2 and 3 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 and stop. Good.
Well, that summarizes all the positions, not all of them, but a lot of the main ones we have. And now your job is to go through your choreography and figure it out which ones you have where and make sure you're doing them correctly.
Let's do one more.
Oh, you have one more?
Follow-away position.
Okay.
Which is same as promenade position, but we move back. For instance, after we exited here, reverse pivot, we could dance follow-away reverse and slip pivot. And 1 and 2, 3. Now, if we take steps one more time, 1 and 2. So on 2, we have follow-away position. Now, it's same rules as in promenade. The hips would be at this angle, about 90 degrees, so-called V shape. The upper bodies would be supported so that they are more or less parallel to each other in the ribcage area and the shoulder area. Just instead of going through forward, we go back into follow-away position, and then from there on the slip, we would be closing back to normal. And of course, we can add pivoting action on top of it. Now, one more position that is very popular, widely used, is the follow-away position. And there are many follow-away positions, like bounce follow-away has a follow-away position in its follow-away reverse slip pivot, a natural follow-away, promenade follow-away. I think it's worth mentioning this position, and it is very similar to promenade. Angles should be the same as in promenade, so we would have open position in the hips, so-called V shape, and as in promenade, supporting rib cages and shoulders so that we're more or less in parallel position, but we're going to move back into the follow-away position. So very similar to promenade, but the movement is back. Now let's take follow-away reverse and slip pivot. Now this figure will have the follow-away position on 2, 1 and 2. So we're in follow-away position, the hips are open, that we both can move comfortably stepping back, and the top is supported so we have correct style of the hold.
The styling of the head could be either the girls opening the head to the right or keeping it head to the left throughout the whole step.
And on slip, we can get into closed position, and then we do the pivot. Let's do the whole figure without stopping. And 1 and 2, 3, and stop. Now we can actually connect the whole thing together. As we did here, we started open impetus into the wing, telemark, into natural telemark, into same foot lunge, reverse pivot, and then we can complete this little section with a follow-away reverse and slip pivot.
And when we're going to be dancing, please pay the attention on all the little changes of the position we're going to have. And of course, between all these steps, we're going to have an outside partner steps, and also where we will come to the closed position altogether.
And would like to demonstrate that to you to the music.